Hello. I want to thank you all, thank the attendees and the community at large for your support and being here and tuning in, because it's tremendous support for me, and I do really appreciate it. And Linda especially for having created this dialogue, opened this conversation, and have done it so wonderfully. So today I would like to talk about the October transits, October being the month, but we're really looking at the lunar cycle, which begins tomorrow and will run through October 16th. And I always start these talks on or around the new moon because I'm working with a lunar calendar, because I believe that that's the way that the months really unfold. So to the Egyptians, the heart, rather than the brain, was the source of human wisdom and the center of emotions and memory. And because of its links with intellect, personality, and memory, it was considered the most important of the internal organs. It could reveal the person's true character, even after death, and therefore the heart was left in the deceased body during mummification. In the weighing of the heart ritual, which this is a picture of, the heart of the deceased is weighed in the scale against the feather of the goddess Ma'at, who personifies truth, balance, harmony, law, morality, and justice. And clearly I have chosen this image because of the scales as we move through the zodiacal sign of Libra in the next 4 weeks. So this is an overview, and what I want to point out here is that we're going to see 3 planets change signs. We're going to see 3 planets change direction. And what's really significant here, if you notice in the last column that I've highlighted the 25 degrees of Virgo, 25 degrees of Capricorn, 24 degrees of Aries, and 22 degrees of Capricorn again. And what this indicates is that anyone with planets in approximately the last 10 degrees, the last decan of the signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, the cardinal signs, are going to feel the effects of this month's lunar cycle most intensely. And as we move through this, I'm going to unpack each of these planetary influences in rotation. So we're going to start with the Virgo new moon, which occurs tomorrow at 25 degrees of Virgo. And the new moon is separating from partile squares to the lunar nodes. It's what in evolutionary astrology we call a skip step. The overview of the Virgo cycle itself is about growth through crisis. It's the time to do the work, and to work with a capital K, capital W. It's work on the self. Virgo has been to the mountain in its polarity of Pisces. It has had the vision, it has had the dreams, it's had the inspiration, intuition, but now it's time to come down and do the work, to carry water and chop wood. But yet we're going to use our imagination and we're going to use our intuition to find the practical solutions for the issues that we are facing globally and locally. And the moon is also applying to a disseminating semi-square to Venus in Leo. And the questions it raises is, how are we actualizing our priorities? What is the authenticity of our relationship to ourselves and with others? There is the lunation also separates from a last quarter trine to Jupiter in Capricorn and to Saturn in Capricorn, and it applies to a partile last quarter trine to Pluto, to the 3 outer planets up in Capricorn. So this is the potential to get grounded, Capricorn, and to create the needed emotional stability, Saturn. How are we actualizing and reconciling the emotional angst of COVID and the extreme political polarization? And that's not just in our country. I think that's happening all over the world. And there's a partile first quarter sesqui-square to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And this is about recognizing the innate talents and gifts that we already possess, what we've brought with us into the world, what we carry with us every day. It's the suitcase that one of the two suitcases that we carry that's so light, our gifts and our talents and our fruitions, that we don't even know that it's so light, we don't even know we're carrying it, but they are there. And the moon also applies to a gibbous quincunx in conjunct 150-degree aspect to Mars retrograde in Aries. How are we dealing with the anger that generates the impulsiveness we're working through? How are we dealing with the consequences of our choices? I see Mars clearly as our choices. It is the response to the values and priorities that are generated by Venus. And in our second house, but how we act on those, how we behave, or really ends up as the choices that we make. And this is what we're facing, are the consequences of those choices. So speaking of Venus, Venus is going to conjoin Vesta. Excuse me, let me move this little thing out of the way. We're going to conjoin Vesta on September 22nd. And it is clearly, how are we actualizing our values and priorities? So this is the second house of values that Venus is famous for. What's really essential to us, our essential priorities, which becomes what we value. And our priorities become based on those values. And again, what is the measure of our authenticity in our relationship with ourselves and others? This is Vesta. Excuse me. And we ask the question, as the Venus and Vesta apply to a last quarter trine in the moon and a last quarter trine to Mars as well, retrograde in Aries, Vesta and Venus separates from a gibbous in conjunct quincunx to, I have trouble saying that, to Jupiter, and a first quarter square to Uranus and Taurus, and also applies to a first quarter trine to Eris. There's a lot going on with Venus in this chart. So again, are our relationships with each other colored by our steadily increasing resentment and irritation with a persistent disruption in our lives? This is Mars, this is Eris. Jupiter is the way we're growing. And obviously the moon is our emotional body and our emotional reactions. So it's tied in very clearly to all of these influences. And there's a full phase quincunx to Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Our ability to stay centered in our priorities can falter as we perceive what we perceive as truth seems to fade in and out. It's confusing. What's true? What's not true? What's news? What's fake news? And Venus in Vesta in Leo also applies to a last quarter trine to the lunar south node. What can we extract from the past, from our past experiences, that can help us move forward? The Virgo new moon occurs on September 17th. And this is, oh, excuse me, I'm going backwards here, I think. There we go. The autumnal equinox will be, as sun ingresses into the sign of Libra, into the cardinal sign of Libra. Libra is the sun in Libra separates from a first quarter square to the lunar north node, and a last quarter square to the lunar north node. As I said, we've got a skipped step situation here now, just with the sun. The moon has moved on, but the sun is still an orb. And this is going to generate the necessity to find our sense of balance and harmony and a sense of normalcy, to re-engage socially and to identify, express, and pursue what we believe to be the truth. The sun separates from a last quarter trine to Saturn in Capricorn and separates from a last quarter trine to Pluto as well. We can experience a sense of powerlessness in the face of the social pressures and demands of our outer world experience, as our outer world experience weighs so heavily on us. Powerlessness being Pluto and the social pressures being Saturn. And the sun applies to a gibbous opposition to Chiron and also to a gibbous quincunx to Ceres. We're going to see that actually Chiron, oh, excuse me, I'm getting ahead. So the wounds and sense of loss take on a very personal character. Chiron is our personal wounds, especially in the sign of Aries, and quincunx is that sense of loss. And Ceres is one of the planets that is changing signs, but it's retrograding back into Aquarius out of Pisces. And it's interesting because Ceres and Mercury are going to change signs within 20 minutes of each other on September 27th. And they will form a partile last quarter trine to each other. They'll be in an exact last quarter trine. So the mood of our world densifies and intensifies and becomes more abrupt. Our self-narrative is still focused on the pain of what we have lost. And as Ceres separates from a crescent semi-square to Jupiter in Capricorn, we're still struggling with the widening sense of loss of normalcy and the fortified and heavily defended battle lines of what is true and what is false, the polarization in Aquarius. And Ceres applies to a last quarter trine to the lunar north node. Our potential going forward revolves around finding practical, rational solutions and surrogates for what has been lost. And this also kind of repeats the Virgo archetype as well, to find rational, workable solutions. But Ceres is about surrogates. Ceres is finding replacements for what we've lost, and making them kind of assuage our sense of the sense of loss. Mercury will ingress into Scorpio on September 27th, and it's an entrenchment of personal beliefs. He separates from a last quarter square to Saturn retrograde, and he separates from a last quarter square to Pluto as well in Capricorn. So this is an entrenchment of personal beliefs, and emotional levels rise as our outer world and personal narratives deepen and intensify. Mercury in Scorpio is definitely going to intensify all of our communication, all of our narratives, both to others and to ourselves. And Mercury in Scorpio also separates from a full phase opposition to Mars retrograde, and to Mercury in Scorpio separates from a full phase opposition to Eris and retrograde in Aries as well. And we're going to see in a couple of slides, Mars and Eris are going to conjoin this month as well. A new awareness of what is driving our anger threatens to overrun our rational thinking. It's hard to hold the center with all this Aries, Mars, and Eris energy, working with our Mercury. Hard to stay centered, not get angry, stay in some place that's able to see things with distance, to get some distance from things and really understand what's happening. Mercury also applies to a gibbous opposition to Uranus and Taurus. Not necessarily going to ease any of this up. People are going to be more likely to speak their mind and express their personal point of view. And we know that can work in many different directions. And Mercury separates from a partile last quarter trine to Ceres as well. It's difficult to emotionally withdraw from the trauma and loss we have suffered. There's a tenacity here of just holding on. Saturn turns direct after its long retrograde on September 29th. And this is going to be an escalation of the power structure, because it's going to start to move forward again towards Pluto and Jupiter, join up. It's separating, it's separating from a balsamic conjunction to Pluto, because Pluto is retrograde, actually moving towards it right now. But Pluto's also going to turn direct, and you will see later on in this presentation. So everything's going to kind of escalate. All of the power issues that we've been dealing with, the authoritarianism, is all going to deepen and intensify. And Mercury is also separating from a last quarter square to Saturn. So there's a fortification of the entrenchment of personal beliefs and opinions. People are not going to back off from how they feel or how they're expressing themselves and what they believe. We're actually going to see this deepen, certainly here in the States as we move towards November 3rd and the US election. And Saturn, Venus is separating, Venus and Leo is separating from a full phase quincunx to Saturn as well. So we're going to experience some personal crises regarding the increase of social authoritarian pressure and the emerging need to create a lifestyle response to outer world events. If this vaccine shows up, are we going to believe that this is the panacea and go get the shot and then, just drop our masks and stop social distancing and just let everything go again? It's probably the worst thing that can happen. I don't want to get into the vaccines at all, but I'm going to refer you to an article in today's New York Times about their perspective on how vaccines have worked in the past and how they will, potentially work in the future, especially vaccines with viruses. It's not necessarily the end, and we don't even know that the vaccine is going to be viable. And there's a full phase quincunx to the lunar north node and a crescent semisextile to the lunar south nodes. Again, we have the nodes in play here with Saturn, bringing in all this evolutionary energy and trying to reconcile past and future and the crises from the past and the potential crises of the future. It's distressed and suffering truth, basically, because these lunar nodes are very much about truth, dictates for its own recovery. Truth has its own consciousness, if you would, and it's desperately seeking a new way forward. The Aries full moon occurs on October 1st, and it's separating from a new phase conjunction to Chiron, and it's applying to a new phase semisextile to Uranus. So we ask ourselves, how much more can we endure? How much more of this can we take? Unfortunately, the good news is that we have within us everything we need to move through this if we will recognize it. The hard part is that the end is not near, and there's no reason to believe that 2021 is going to be any easier in terms of COVID or anything else that's going on politically than 2020. The full moon also applies to a first quarter square to Jupiter. So we're still carrying a heavy emotional load as we work individually and in partnership with others to grow forward. And there's a bit of light here because there are these two quintiles as the moon applies to a last quarter quintile to the lunar north node in Gemini and also to Saturn. There can be a mental glimmer of light going forward as a new way presents itself, as new structure, new form, new ideas, new way to address some of these things can be realized. And the moon separates from a last quarter trine to Hygeia. So the deeply somatic effects of COVID present the opportunity to practice self-care and preventive medicine as an integral part of our developing lifestyle. We have to change our lifestyles. We have to change the way we are meeting the world and taking care of ourselves. This is what's wrapped up here. Nobody's coming to save us. The vaccine's not going to save us. And we can't even count on the election coming to save us. It's very possible that the election could just create much more conflict and turmoil than we realize in its outcome. Venus will ingress into Virgo, increasing the Virgo energies and bringing directly bringing our values and priorities into focus on identifying the areas of our life where our crises have occurred and identifying and applying holistic remedies. Venus sits at the focal point of a quintile. This is another little bit of good news. Only two angles of the yod are visible because these are only Venusian aspects, but there's also a quintile from Chiron to Saturn and Pluto. So it's a highly creative portal is opened. We've got the openings. We're going to have the imagination. We're going to have the invention. We're going to have the foresight and the long range view to begin to work with this. But we have to pull ourselves up out of the immediate distress and the immediate abyss that Neptune and Ceres have literally pulled us down into. Venus is also anchors one point of a grand trine with Mars, Eris in Aries, and the lunar south node in Sagittarius. So priorities are going to be centered on developing practical responses to COVID and its effects on our physical and emotional health. We're looking at non-negotiable imperatives that now require different choices going forward regarding the health and well-being of all beings on the planet, and especially for the planet itself. Virgo is all about, obviously all about the earth, but Virgo is also about our own healing, and Mars is our choices. And, in the face of all this disruption from Eris, I'm not going to get into Eris too much today because I've spoken a lot about it, and you can read about it, Eris, a lot of it on my website, the number 4 evolutionaryastrology.com. But Eris is going to work her magic in the end. We just have to trust. Mars retrograde is going to conjoin Eris retrograde. And this is going to be a pretty intense event. It occurs on October 4th. It's why we need to pray for the people in California and the Pacific Northwest. This is ignition, it's combustion, explosion, eruption, conflagration, outrage, scandal, lawlessness, chaos. I kind of stopped there because we'll just go down that rabbit hole. But this is Eris and Mars are the combination of this is the source of the crises in 2020, the Eris and Pluto and Mars and Eris. This is what is bringing us all of the very, very severe crises in our own lives and in our collective lives that we've had to deal with. The Mars and Eris are in a first quarter square to Jupiter and Saturn, and are separating from a first quarter square to Pluto. So I have spoken about the intensity and the rare occurrence of Pluto squaring Eris. So now Mars has joined up. The Pluto-Mars square in Capricorn and Aries has not occurred since 2,700 years. The good news is that was when Buddha and Pythagoras and Homer and other of the saints and individuals who are responsible for the major thought streams in Western civilization were on the planet. And the Mars Eris also forms a grand trine, a fire trine with Vesta and the lunar south node, and it's kited out by the lunar north node, Gemini. So the chaos that has been created by COVID and Donald Trump presents evolutionary opportunities to generate the ability to find an experiential path forward. We have to experiment. We have to move away from what we think is tried and true, move away from what is quote normal or what we think will work, because obviously it stopped working some time ago. In order to create a global well-being and to generate the personal growth that we're all hoping for. We have to take charge. Its intention, its purpose, and passion is the path forward, and the way that we're going to see through this. In the end, Mars and Eris again are going to work their magic, but we're going to literally sit on the hot seat for a while until it happens. On October 4th as well, the same day, Pluto is going to station direct, even as he squares Mars and Eris. This is the primary engine of evolution. And as I said, he's squaring, but Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto conjunct will now all be direct. So we're going to see a forward movement of these outer planets that have been as the core of the major changes and transformations that we've experienced since January. So things are going to move forward again. We have to watch and see what's going to pop up. But again, what we're going to manifest, in our North Node and the North Node, transits and North Node of whatever country we live in is through a focused conscious intention. That's what will appear. If we're focused on fear, we're gonna generate more circumstances that generate fear. If we focus on moving through this and actually evolving through it, then that's what will happen. Pluto in Capricorn sits at the focal point of a yod in a full phase quincunx to Vesta and a partile gibbous quincunx to the lunar north node. There's tremendous developmental pressure here to find the workable and ethical solutions to the extreme challenges we're facing. You know, we've got the planetary influences are on our side. These are hard, challenging aspects, granted, but that's what creates, that's the evolution. That's what moves us forward. It's not the trines and sextiles. They may open the doorway, but it's the challenging aspects that actually create the movement. And Vesta separates from a partile full phase quincunx to Pluto as well. And this is about authentic and sacred commitments to self, are embedded in Pluto's platform going forward. We have to become authentic with who we are, what we need, what our values are, not what our neighbors are saying we should do, not what somebody else is saying, but from our own heart, not from our head, but from our heart. And to have that sacred commitment to that heart understanding and that heart knowledge, that again is the ingredient, the fuel to go forward. And Mars is going to square Pluto as well on the 9th. And this is a partile first quarter square to Pluto. And it also applies to a partile first quarter square to the lunar south node and a partile square to the lunar north node. So again, we've got Mars engaged with the nodal axis as well. These are more facilitating, opportune aspects, but they need to be addressed. They need to be seized. We have to grab them and run with them. But there is still a potential for incendiary events to occur. But what we're looking at are events that will be of the fated or destined nature. These are some intense days that we're going to experience because we're dealing with elemental forces that are coming basically from the core of us and the core of humanity, if you would. Mars separates from a full phase opposition to the sun as well. So we're going to see a release of ego energy, a random exhibition of bad behavior. And I think we all know what that looks like. So the last of the events of the month is Mercury turning retrograde, and certainly not the least, in Scorpio. So, public, private, self-narratives will drill down to the core of what is essential for our survival. Again, these are it will be non-negotiable issues. There'll be no, it's a choke chain kind of mentality that we're only going to be able to go in one direction. The choices of the past are no longer available to us, and the choices of the future still need to be determined, to mapped out, and seized. Mercury separates from a full phase conjunction with Juno and applies to a crescent quintile with Vesta in Leo. So our commitments are examined. That's Juno, and questioned. Mercury for authenticity, especially the authenticity to self that I talked about, which is Virgo which is Venus and Vesta. And Mercury separates from a last quarter quintile to Pluto, and Mercury applies to a last quarter quintile to Saturn as well, and separates from a full phase quintile to Chiron. So here we have three quintiles working in this retrograde station that again potentialize the ability for some highly creative, really new paradigm to be realized. But again, we have to reach for it. We have to work with it. We can't just sit back and say, okay, we've got all these quintiles, something's going to happen. We have to seize them. We have to recognize that the portal is open and we have to step through it. There's a full phase opposition to Uranus, which is going to draw our focus to the consequences of how we have addressed the fulfillment of our essential needs. Uranus, as he's been moving through Taurus, has raked the ground for what's essential, and literally raised it and raked it up at the same time. There's not going to be any backing off of this, certainly for a number of years. Uranus has got a ways to go through Taurus. We're going to be dealing with their essential resources and what's really important to us for quite some time. And our narratives, our self-narrative, our voice, our expression, what we're writing about, the media, it's all going to reflect this opposition. And it applies to a last quarter trine to Neptune. So our dreams and just daydreams can inhabit our daytime thoughts. There's gonna be a dreamlike quality, perhaps that's going to override, our daylight hours. But utilize it and try and connect day with night. Let's not, assume that day is reserved for when the sun is above us, and night only exists when the lights go out. We need to synthesize the cycle and recognize that there's conscious activity in both of those spheres every day. And to connect with it and to pull that Neptunian nocturnal awareness down, as much as possible down into our daily lives, and to ground it. Again, it's a Pisces Virgo polarity. We can go up on the mountain, but we've got to eventually come down and do the work. These are some important dates through this retrograde period. Tomorrow night, Mercury will become an evening star through the 8th of October. I encourage everybody to get out in the morning and at night if you can, if you're up before sunrise, and you're not partying, you're whatever, in your own home, hopefully at night, go out and look at the sky, because I think the astronomy and just the visible awareness of where the planets are at any given time, to be able to see Mercury and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn, which are mostly all visible in the evenings right now, it adds a dimension to our astrological work. We now have a connection to it. It's not just something that's in an ephemeris or in solar fire or in a chart. It's actually in the sky, and we can actually embody as above, so below. We can see what's going. It's a powerful dimension to access, and I encourage everybody to do it. On the 13th of October, after the 8th, Mercury will begin to move back towards the sun. He's headed to his inferior conjunction on the 14th. He turns retrograde actually on the 13th. And then on November 3rd, he will station direct. And at the same time, he'll also reemerge as a morning star. And he exits his shadow on November 19th. So we're looking at basically a 2-month period of this retrograde until Mercury finally clears it all out. And in the meantime, go out and see him in the sky. Find him in the morning. It will help you navigate whatever it is that you're working with as we move through this retrograde period. Overall, these are the important dates to watch. The new moon tomorrow, the autumnal equinox on the 22nd, Mercury in Aries will ingress on the 27th. And these asterisks indicate that on this day, there are also other collateral events going on. These are important dates. It's not just this event that's occurring. There are other events that will also occur in tandem with them and be part of each of these activities, these influences. The full moon is on the 1st. We have Pluto direct on the 4th, Mars squaring Pluto on the 9th, and Mercury stationing retrograde on the 13th. And again, I'll repeat what I said in the beginning. A lot of these outer planet activities are going to be in the last decan of cardinal signs. So if you have planets in that are cardinal in the last 10 degrees approximately, the last third of each of these signs, pay attention, because you could be in the crosshairs in some way. So stay alert, be careful on the road, certainly with all these Mars and Pluto things going on, and just be awake as much as you possibly can in your daily day. So my takeaway is, the planetary influences for the October lunar cycle will orbit around the necessity for healing, harmony, and balance, and for ourselves and our communities and the planet. And to do this, we need to re-examine our choices from the past and how they match up with our personal values and priorities, and with what we are collectively dreaming, because guys, this is all a dream. We are dreaming this. This is not happening to us. It's not our outer world, affecting our inner world. It's exactly the other way around. The outer world is a reflection of our inner world, and we are dreaming everything that we see. So that kind of explains why we see so many different visions out there. At the same time, we need to recognize that each of us has different perspectives and corresponding priorities that are unfolding in their own kairos, their own moment, special moment in time. Regardless of how unpleasant the choices others are making might seem from our perspective, we need the understanding that all of the current expressions of human behavior are evolutionary and necessary to move us forward. So these are the horoscopes for the month. I'm going to just kind of read through them for you. You can read these also for your moon and your rising sign as well, because we behave from all three centers, our sun, moon, and rising sign at different times. So Aries, when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and the other represents opportunity, wrote John F. Kennedy. Let your instincts guide you through this difficult passage and allow you to find the opportunities that exist within you and around you. Crises are tremendous opportunities for growth. All is not lost, only that which no longer serves us. Taurus, don't compromise yourself. You're all you've got, said Janis Joplin. Fate has delivered most of what you really need in the world the day you were born. Destiny has led you to the rest. Allow your own individuality and personal authenticity to be your compass. Listen to the messages from your heart. The heart holds all the truth you will ever need about yourself and who you can become. Gemini, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, wrote the French philosopher René Descartes. I would suggest that it might be the other way around. I am, therefore I think, and perhaps I am what I think. Ponder these different meanings, Gemini, to understand where you have been and where you are intending to go. Cancer, follow your inner moonlight. Don't hide the madness, wrote poet Allen Ginsberg. Emotions are key to the heart, and our heart will always speak our truth. The chaos swirling around us right now permits us to observe and dispel the thoughts that inhibit our emotions and fulfill what our heart truly desires. Let yourself be spun by these turbulent eddies and woven in the direction you have always intended to go. Leo, I've been quite happy. Look, here are my proofs. Remember that I am indifferent to discomforts which would harass other folk. What do the circumstances of life matter if your dreams make you lord, paramount of time and space, wrote W. Somerset Maugham. What is truly essential is who and what we are on the inside. Everything happening on the outside will follow as reflection, automatically by default. Identify the gifts you have within you and share them with the world. They're not just the tools for your survival. They are the pathway to your ability to thrive. Virgo, sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory, wrote French author George Duhamel. As difficult as this crisis is, like all crises, it has a destination that is cloaked in struggle, but primed for personal growth. Allow your instincts to guide you forward toward what your soul has intended you to discover. You already have everything you need to succeed. Pay attention. Whatever you think is missing will show up on its own accord. Libra. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world, wrote American abolitionist Harriet Tubman. Use your dreams as your new roadmap, Libra. Then share your map with the world. We are all moving collectively into unknown territory. Make it a journey of the heart and let your heart lead the way. Scorpio. When others were picked up and walked home by friends or fathers or best friends' sisters, I was the kid in the gray hoodie walking with the poets, the singers, the thinkers, and I was not alone, wrote Swedish author and songwriter Charlotte Erickson. Are those like-minded souls still walking your path with you, or have you diverged off into another direction? Reconnect with the still small voice within you that speaks in rhyme and chants the verse. Your heart will thank you. Sagittarius. In a world of knowledge and expertise, fame and fortune, status and ranks, nothing has the power to affect change as much as love and compassion, wrote Reiki practitioner and sound healer K.A. Chinnery. Our bodies have two intelligent organs, our brain and our heart. Our brain will constantly repeat what we think and what we believe. Our heart will only tell us what is true. The world is in a state it is right now because of the clash of beliefs and ideas, opinions, and attitudes that conflict with truth. It's a scientific fact that the human heart resonates at the same frequency as the Earth's core. Let's all hum the same note together. Capricorn. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it, said Albert Einstein. We are not what we know or believe. We are how we actualize those principles. Chaos offers the opportunities for shifts in awareness because it disassembles what we believe to be true, forcing us to reassemble it again in a new way. We are currently blessed with such times. Let's use the time wisely. Aquarius. When you dream at night, what version of yourself do you see? Do you immediately recognize yourself but wonder about who that person is? What an opportunity for growth and individuation. Can you recover that self-image when you wake in the morning? Can you actualize your dreams? This is your homework, Aquarian. Pisces. You have two choices in life. You can dissolve into the mainstream or you can be distinct. To be distinct, you must be different. To be different, you must strive to be what no one else but you can be. We're an American writer and aphorist, that's someone who writes aphorisms, I had to look it up, Alan Ashley Pitt. The current array of challenges we are facing has opened the space for us to realize and actualize our individuality. Obviously, that has shown us to have good and bad repercussions. Keep telling yourselves that what will eventually emerge will be what most of us agree is good, because power beats force every time. Thank you, David Hawkins. Let's all cross over to the sunny side of the street. So a little bit of shameless self promotion here. I've just published my second book, America at the Crossroads. It's the astrology of the 2020 US election, correlating the November 3rd horoscope to the chart for the day that the 13 British colonies declared war on Great Britain and actually became a sovereign nation. The US Pluto return occurs in February 2021, not 2022. The US Neptune opposition has already perfected 2 times. The outer planets are making significant aspects to the US chart that clearly reflect what is happening to our country and our people. There are a remarkable 51 exact aspects between the chart and the astrology for November 3rd. And these events relate to the White House, Congress, the Supreme Court, the US Post Office, and our current human state of distress and sense of loss. Where do we begin to unravel what is happening around us and within us in order to gain the understanding, regain our balance, if not our normalcy? Please read my book and decide for yourself if we are not nearing the apex of one of the most important periods in American history and perhaps in the history of the world. It's available in either ebook or paperback on Amazon. You can reach me at my website, forevolutionaryastrology.com. That's the number 4. I do monthly transits and horoscopes here on Facebook. I do daily transits when they're significant on Facebook as well. And if you would like to know more about how you are personally impacted by these planetary events, what your personal pathway going forward is, please just contact me for a personal consultation at this address. And I thank you all so much for your attention and for the work that we all do together. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was excellent. And we'll look forward to catching you next month.
Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Bye.